Today, we're not only going to catch up on the spring trends for this year, but we're also going to listen to my opinion on whether I think they have the capacity to become actual in real life trends or whether I think they'll be stuck to a social media algorithm only. And I have a real mix of like emerging trends and trends I think are already kind of cemented, but I want to talk about because I want to talk about where I see them going. But before we get into it, let's make it clear what I consider a online versus IRL trend. It's pretty self-explanatory, but just a loose definition. An online-only trend is something you'll only see worn by Instagram influencers and cool girls on TikTok and maybe on Pinterest too. Maybe because the trend is kind of ugly, kind of impractical outside of an Instagram candid, or just like doesn't have mainstream appeal in whatever way. And obviously the opposite of that is an IRL trend, which transcends the algorithm and becomes something you start to see on people walking through the streets, something that is actually wearable and has mass appeal. But yeah, that's a definition. That's what we're doing today. Let's get into it because I have so much to share. Firstly, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Katie. I talk a lot about sustainable fashion and how we can make the fashion industry better, and also about what's trending in fashion online. So if that sounds good to you, then subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow me on my social medias. Let's do a quick disclaimer before we start this video. Firstly, obviously, these are just my opinions, and if you disagree with them, then that's absolutely fine, and I'd love to hear why you disagree. And this is also definitely coming from someone who lives in London, which is a very fashion forward city. So when I say that something is an in real life trend, you might not agree if you live somewhere a little bit more rural, but that's okay. We all have different realities. And my second disclaimer is that this is coming from someone very interested in sustainable fashion, how fashion can be better and how we can lose trend cycles and, you know, become a lot more thoughtful in our purchasing. So definitely don't take this as a shopping list of trends that you should be buying for spring, even if I say that it's going to be an IRL trend. And we shouldn't really be listening to trend cycles in the first place. This is just what I find interesting. And obviously my world is kind of online, so I end up seeing these trends even if I don't want to. But yeah, as I said, definitely not a list of what you should and shouldn't have in your wardrobe. And without further ado, let's get into some of the trends. So the first one is not necessarily like a trend you can pinpoint really easily. It's more like a concept. Basically, I've just been noticing this kind of rise of subtle differences. If I had to kind of define it, which is a little bit hard with this one because it is really vague, but it's kind of like clothes are still neutral, still maybe like neutrally colored, plain, maybe what you call wardrobe basics, but they just have this little touch to them, this little like elevated aspect that makes them not quite so like wardrobe basic, plain looking. I've seen this in a variety of ways, to be fair, which is why this one's quite vague. I saw this skirt which had a lace trim like halfway up, which was really cool. Kind of like striking because the skirt otherwise was quite plain and then it just had this lace trim. I also saw these like jeans, or was it a jean jacket that was like blue denim, but it was striped blue denim, and it's just not what you would have expected from, I think, just a denim jacket. Normally it would just be plain, but this was like a really subtle stripe and it was really nice. Or like I saw these white trousers, pretty normal boxy white trousers, but they had this like really faint embroidery on them, and it was just that kind of like little extra detail that you might not immediately notice but made them feel more luxurious when you did notice them. I don't know, I just think subtly cool clothing is gonna be big as we move further into the pipeline we've been on of personal style getting more important and people trying to like prove they have personal style. But I think especially in a way that's not too loud, not too gimmicky, not like, oh, I have personal style and you're wearing like a full night costume. I think it's more about subtly proving you have cool parts of your wardrobe. Even your neutrals have some sort of elevation that makes them better than just like a basic pair. And I think it also kind of maybe ties into the sort of talk I've seen online as well about the end of micro trends and how people maybe don't want to be jumping so much into a trend for fear of looking like a micro trend final boss. And so now we're kind of moving into more like subtle differences, but that still fit into the macro trend of dressing. I don't know if this one makes sense, and it's probably a bad one to start with because of this, but like I think because it is such a wide reaching trend, I think it's kind of showing up in all of the rest of the trends I'm going to talk about, because people are trying to subtly differentiate themselves from others, even when they're trying to follow trends. And so it's kind of like just an overarching theme. But next one, and I mentioned this in a podcast recently. Oh wait, sorry, for the last one, I forgot to say whether I think it's an online or IRL trend. I'm going to be so bad at that. I think it actually might be an IRL trend, because I could see this, because it's so subtle, it's so vague, it's so adaptable. I think we're going to be seeing this more, especially because I think everyone's been thinking about personal style recently, and even if that discourse is starting to drop off, I still think it will influence our purchasing decisions for a while going forward. So I think it could have mass appeal. But yeah, I think this decision might be a dividing opinion one, because I do think for the majority of people, they like to just be told what to buy. So having to purposely seek out something that's a little bit different from everything else is going to be a step that maybe people won't take. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But okay, back to the Adidas taekwondos. Like I said, I mentioned in the podcast, one of the reasons I didn't like them is because people are already struggling to style them. Like, people are buying them because they've seen them on TikTok and then immediately posting the comments like, they're here, how do I wear them? And like TikTokers are just replying to style them with like a pair of like loose jeans and a top. And you know, you have like one outfit that everyone seems to be wearing the same, or like maybe a long maxi skirt, and that's kind of it. And I just think they're not very adaptable to your wardrobe. They're a very statement piece that I think is going to age really quickly. I think one very obvious comparable is the Sambas, which are also Adidas, and how I think they're an example of how a shoe can become mainstream, versus the taekwondos are an example of a shoe only being Instagram girlies only. Could you see Rishi Sunak wearing taekwondos? No, I don't think so. I mean, I would pay for it, but I don't think he would do it of his own free will. So that kind of separates it to me. Like, I just don't see how a lot of people will be wearing the taekwondos. And I don't see, even if it did have mass appeal, how long it can reasonably last enough to become part of the like real cultural zeitgeist. Like, people are still wearing Sambas, even though they've been the trending shoe for like 2-3 years, because they're classics, because they're not really dateable in any way. Versus the taekwondos feel like they're going to become a very 5-minute trend that reminds us all of spring 2025. Does that make sense? And for that reason, online only section. I know Phoebe mentioned this trend in her recent video, which is really good. You should go check it out. But visual mending as a trend. And I guess this kind of fits into my first one, talking about subtle differences, because I feel like it fits in very well. The idea of visibly mending something, and that being the like subtle feature that sets your clothing apart from others. And it also fits into the interest in upcycling we've seen recently. And for that reason, I think it's going to be an IRL trend. It's something that a lot of people could pick up quite easily. It's very practical. It's like a nice skill to do, and it's a nice hobby. So it fits into the rise of hobbies too. We are already seeing brands take advantage of this trend, I think. And this is another reason why I think it's going to be an IRL trend, but this isn't really a good thing. Basically, I had a subscriber send me pictures of what was supposed to be a tablecloth dress being sold by a mass market fashion brand. When I say tablecloth dress, it's because this style is apparently literally supposed to look like you've upcycled a tablecloth into clothing. It's very cute, supposedly handmade, but clearly it's not handmade, because they're selling these by the dozen in multiple fashion brands, actually, she showed me. And to be honest, it didn't surprise me at all. I think it's only maybe the beginning of us starting to see brands selling clothing that purposefully looks like it's mended, even when it's brand new. Like, I can just see them selling this aesthetic as they would any other trend, and completely disregarding the sentiment behind it of trying to keep your clothes in rotation, trying to keep them out of landfill. So although this really annoys me from a sustainability perspective, I think it reaffirms my belief that this is going to be an IRL trend, since brands are already making it mass market. The next one I wanted to mention was animal prints. It's been a real mix of like cow print, zebra print, and also polka dots, like animal prints and polka dots, as being the kind of prints of this season. I think obviously off the back of the leopard print trend we saw last year, that's gone completely mainstream. I think people are now trying to like evolve that trend into something new, because to be fair, I've already seen people wearing these a lot. I feel like they've reached like mass appeal at this point, And I'm trying to remember if I've actually seen someone wearing them in real life already. I think maybe I've seen someone wearing deer print in real life. So in the traditional sense, maybe this is already an IRL trend, but I think it's going to be so flash in the pan. I think it's already reached saturation point, to be honest. And even if you buy these clothes and wear them, because they're so mass market online already, they're just going to make you feel like a micro trend final boss, like as soon as you wear them. Just like leopard print was almost immediately out as soon as it was in because everyone had it. And maybe you don't agree. I know a lot of people love leopard print and they love the leopard print trend. It wasn't for me, and I immediately felt like it was a like oversaturated trend as soon as it came out. And I think these animal prints in general are just reaching that point, just off the back of the leopard print trend almost. Obviously, these styles, again, aren't new. Yes, they're trendy, but they're not trend-led. Like, leopard print is always in style, but obviously it had its saturation point in 2024. And so consequently, I feel like leopard print will be out with the fashion crowd for a few years going forward now. And I feel like these other animal print trends will be also very quickly out for a few years. And to be honest, I'm going to put these in the online only section, and maybe you're going to disagree, but onto a few other trends I've seen that I think are very easily IRL trends. One is bold accessories. Like, I've been seeing so many examples of these in real life already and obviously online, and I think again it's one of those that's so vague, so adaptable that like everyone can make it work. Obviously there are trends within this trend, like there's the kind of emerging seashell trend in jewelry that I think again could have very mainstream appeal because it's very cute and it's not too out there, it's not too gauche. But also you have the like chunky bracelet stacks that everyone's sort of wearing. They're very nice. I think they're also very adaptable. I think these things are so easy because they're literally just accessories to your outfit that you could be wearing anything and just put these on, and you know, you can customize them, get them in whatever suits your personality. So I think this is a very clear IRL trend. I think another one is tank tops. I know that people are saying it's a spring trend, but obviously tank tops are like a wardrobe staple. And even though I think there is a specific style trending and a specific like monogrammed element to it, a lot of people have something that will work with this trend. Maybe you could DIY the monogram on a vest you already have. Again, because it's so easy, so adaptable, so wearable, it's going to be an IRL trend. Like, people can immediately put it on and go. They don't have to buy into it. Most likely. Obviously, I know there's some people that won't have a vest, but the majority. But one trend I think is a little bit more nuanced. I think needs a little bit more consideration, even though your initial thought would be, okay, this is an IRL trend, but hear me out, is like scarves and bandanas. I think we've been seeing them a lot in different ways, and I think we've been seeing them styled in different ways, and it's the styling that I think is nuanced about whether this becomes an IRL or online only trend. Obviously there's ways of styling a bandana or a scarf that are very staple, pretty much everyone has done. Wearing it as a headband in your hair, or like tying them around the handle of your bag. Like, there's a very practical, summery staple for a lot of people. But I think the way some influencers are styling it this spring isn't going to translate into an IRL trend. I'm thinking specifically the baseball cap with a scarf around it tied at the chin. I don't think that's very like wearable in real life. Like, what if you need to take off your hat and then you retie it and it'll be really, really messy? Like, I think it's an Instagram candid moment only. I also don't really like the scarf around the neck, and I feel like maybe this is a difference in your clothing style. Like, if you're very like quite luxury-esque, you might like the scarf around the neck. I think again it's a little bit fussy, it's a little bit too prim for like everyday mass market appeal. And the other example of people tying it around their waists as a belt, I think this is a really cute styling option, and like if you can keep it there, it's cute. But again, I think it's really fussy. I think obviously it might slip up, it might get wrinkled, it might fall off. Like, if you're just like moving and walking, I feel like it will bunch and ride up and shift and like twist around on your hips. Like, it's just not gonna stay like that. And I think for that reason, it's not gonna have mass appeal. Like, that would annoy me if I had to keep checking periodically through the day that the scarf hasn't like twisted to an awkward angle. I wouldn't wear it for this reason. So I think there's almost like a split here between scarves and bandanas being styled in one way, definitely being an IRL trend, versus being styled in the other, being an online only trend for like fashion girlies who are just getting the picture for Instagram and then can like take it off if it annoys them. You might disagree. You also might have seen these scarves and bandanas styled in a different way, and put it in the comments and we can debate about whether you think it falls into the online versus IRL bandana styling. But okay, let's go on to the monster trend for this video, the one I really wanted to dig into, which is butter yellow. And I know you might already be confused because yes, I do feel like it's already transcended the point of being an online only trend into the real world. I've seen so many people wearing it. I've seen so many people buying into it already that it is already an IRL trend. However, I think it's going to go the way of animal prints, hit its saturation point way too quickly and very quickly drop out of being worn in real life. I think it's already hit its saturation point, if I'm being honest. But because, like I said, a lot of people have just bought into it, it could last for a little while longer, maybe like another year or so. But I think for fashion girlies, they're going to very quickly turn onto other colours because everyone's already wearing butter yellow. So they have to differentiate. It's always a game of differentiating. So very quickly, I think butter yellow is going to become non-trendy. And instead, we're going to see it replaced with colours in similar kind of palettes, like pastels, but maybe like a blue, a pink, a purple, maybe, or a green, which again are obviously very like springy colours anyway. But I feel like the fashion girlies will really be playing these up as alternatives, but similar to butter yellow. And I think one of the drivers for these new colours is going to be the same thing that was propelling butter yellow for a point, which is that for a number of years now, we've seen this kind of like greige takeover in fashion. And I think people have got very used to seeing influencers wearing greige and have adopted that into their wardrobes. And like everyone's kind of forgotten colour a little bit in their wardrobes and it's gone very neutral. And I think the butter yellow came at a very good point because it was kind of like a subtle re-entry into colour. Like it's not an in-your-face colour, it's very neutral. It's very simple. You can wear it with neutrals, which is for a lot of people their wardrobes now, that it wasn't that hard to adopt for everyone. And I think these other pastel colours are on the same level. So for that reason, I could see them becoming a very IRL trend. And at the point they become IRL trends, the online trend will have moved on to maybe an even brighter colour, because I think colour is slowly seeping back into the trend cycle and fashion girlies are trying to push it a lot more. Again, I think as an indicator of personal style. Like I know a lot of people are saying that personal style discourse is out, but I think it's permeated all of our subconsciousness. And I think it's definitely permeated the fashion influencer subconsciousness and all of that discourse going on about all New York influencers are the same and they're all wearing the same outfits and stuff. I think that is going to be a macro influence for the next 5 years of fashion. So I don't know. I don't know how quickly the other colours will be adopted. But either way, I think colour as a macro trend for spring, definitely an online trend. Maybe in the muted version, it's an IRL trend. I suppose butter yellow is a colour, so we're going to put it in the IRLs, but we'll see how this one develops. One trend I feel like we have to talk about is bowling bags. They've been called the it bag for spring by some people. And whilst I don't like the concept of an it bag, I do kind of agree that this is a trend I could see becoming like IRL mass adopted, because not only are they practical and I think they're really cute. I think the design's really cute. It's very retro. It's very, fitting into the return of the Y2K 90s aesthetic. I also think they're really thrift friendly. I know obviously brands have been hopping on the trend. We spoke about Peachy Den's like £170 PU leather version. And I think they're definitely not the only brand that have been releasing bowling bags recently. I think they also fit really well into the macro trend of like very preppy fashion going on in the last few years without being too in your face about it. And because I think they can come in such a range of styles, it also doesn't feel like a flash in the pan micro trend that will hit saturation point really soon. I think overall, this is an example of a trend to me that although it feels online, I think could have mass market appeal. I think this is an IRL trend. And I know I keep saying that practical is a reason that it will go mass appeal, but it just so helps that they're practical. You could kind of like make an argument for yourself that, oh, you can carry like everything in this. This can become my new like go-to everything bag. So why wouldn't I buy it? Do you know what I mean? I for one never bought into the tiny bag trend because I knew I wouldn't fit anything into it. So practicality to me does make a difference. And finally, last trend, and I was a little bit scared to do this one because I feel like because I think it's part of the quiet luxury trend. I have a prejudice against it, and I know that a lot of people like the quiet luxury trend, so they're probably going to disagree. But the cropped trench coat, I really dislike it. I think it's really awkward to style. I think it's kind of ugly. I'm not even kind of ugly. I think it's ugly, and I've yet to see someone style it in a way that I like, personally. But I think it's an online only trend because it is, again, so impractical. Like, you get a trench coat to save you from the rain, but if that trench coat stops at your hips, then what is it doing? I almost feel like the material would be too flimsy to not have it be like a long coat. I feel like the length of the coat is what gives it weight, since it's in like a Macintosh material, and if it didn't have the weight, it would just be really flimsy. And for that reason, I think they're an online only trend, because honestly, the only people I've seen wearing them have been influencers. And even when the influencers are styling them, I don't think the outfits look good. I think because they're quite a boring coat anyway. It's not exactly something you would rush out to buy. I think in terms of mass appeal, this just isn't going to be an IRL trend. But I feel like I'm going to have to eat my words, and like this is going to become like the coat of spring or something. I don't know. I hope not, but hey, that's just my style. I certainly won't be wearing this, even though I love my maxi trench coat. This is just a no for me. And with that, that is my lists of online and IRL trends for spring. I feel like they were sound. I feel like they were rooted in like cultural context, but I don't know, maybe you just disagree. To be honest, no one can control the trend cycle. No one can know what is going to go mainstream. I don't even know if I'd have put butter yellow as a mainstream trend. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, you're following me on my social medias, and I hope you have a lovely day. If you want to watch another video, the one on screen is the one you should watch, but otherwise, I'll speak to you really soon. Bye.